YouTube? Welcome to another one of our videos today. Today, this one's actually going to be a pretty sensitive video. This will be covering on the topic of abuse, and this is really interesting because I've been thinking about it all day. It's been kind of, I call this the girlfriend dilemma. All right, so one day, let's say I'm in a relationship, or let's say let's say just I have a friend. All right, let's say that my girlfriend or friend went through some sort of abuse and they told me, let's say they tell me I've been abused or that they did this or did that. Now let's go ahead and raise a dilemma here. Obviously, the first thing when someone tells me that they've been abused, obviously I'm gonna hug them, give them a little bit of comfort. But then again, it's also going to raise that question. All right, let me look at my notes real quick. The really big problem with abuse chat is that definitely the perception of it, what also constitutes abuse in relationships and friendships all across the world is different. All right, what some may seem as abuse in this relationship, some others may seem as some sort of humor or joke. All right, obviously, how abuse is seen in a lot of cultures and relationships or friendships can be seen differently, and that definitely society also kind of blinds the line between that. And let me go ahead and cover it right here. So obviously, let's let's say my future girlfriend. Let's say that she comes right up to me. She tells me that they've abused me or that they've been abusing me. Or this person has been abusing me for a while now, and let's say that this is actually true in this hypothetical scenario. That this is actually true. All right. Let's see. But the problem with this dilemma here is that for um for one part, when we add neutrality into this equation, it does get really challenging because when it comes to abuse, what constitutes it across cultures can be different. What I might see as abuse, other friend groups might take in as some sort of humor or say some sort of joke. Because then again, the lines between plain abuse, whether that be through words or whether that be through actions, society kind of blinds that. All right. So let's see this. Obviously, after a few days, let's say I look into the situation, um, and let's say actually taking a stance on a case of abuse does get kind of challenging because looking at it again, hmm, like this is kind of jogging up my memory a little bit. But when it comes to abuse, what constitutes it? I think I already said this like 3 times already. What constitutes it can be different all across all let's say friendships or relationships, and whether that be my girlfriend or whether it be my friend, we're still talking in both. It doesn't really matter. But thing is, the dynamics could be different, so we're going to be speaking on let's say that she's actually being abused, like someone's actually definitely abusing her. And let's say in this case I'm naive to anything, and let's say I end up asking for evidence. All right, because when you take a stance on things, whenever that be neutral this side or that side, obviously there has to be some reasoning why. Obviously, I definitely comfort my girl, but the really big question that this raises is that after a few days, should I keep on if there's no evidence, but she is actually being abused, but I don't know it yet? I'm still kind of contemplating that. Like, let's say looking at this from like a pure uh spectator perspective where they know everything else is happening. Looking at it from that, it gets really interesting because number one, let me look at my notes real quick. If I publicly announce, like, let's say that this abuse case goes high profile, and let's say someone's asking me for my stance, if I take no stance at all, or if I take a neutral stance, society might hail me as a terrible boyfriend for not immediately comforting my girlfriend or friend. But the thing is, the really big problem with neutrality and trying to understand both sides is that when it comes to cases of abuse, it can get really ambiguous really fast. All right, the big problem with abuse is that emotions and when it comes to certain types of cases of abuse, people's perception of it can change over time, especially when what might seem as let's see, because this is really ambiguous. I don't really mean to be insensitive here, but in some cases, if I can look at this again. Oh, okay. Teens' emotions, like people's emotions, especially when it comes into society, are often go up and down. So what might be perceived as this can be perceived as this later on, where that be slightly differently, or or something that is completely different. And the problem with taking a stance, whether you're polarized or you're taking a neutral stance or taking this side, is that things are constantly changing. Or in the form of abuse where there's no clear evidence, it's always constantly changing. And the really big problem with this is that abusers are very smart at hiding their own things. They're very smart at manipulating the game, because for the people, even for the critics that are against my position right now, they don't play the same game as we do. They hide the evidence. They make a lot of things difficult to perception, because number one, gaslighting. Number two, making these things seem true but they're not. I don't know, that's like grossly oversimplifying a lot of things, but I'm trying to keep this video due to constraints. But number three, manipulators are really smart at hiding their own things. They can change someone's perceptions really fast. Abusers can hold their perceptions of people real damn fast. And what someone could consider as this could consider as this one tomorrow. And looking at it again, the problem with this is that multiple variables are constantly being manipulated. Or the person's feelings, let's say my girlfriend's feelings, are constantly being played around by the abuser. And the abuser themselves, they're already playing out with a lot of stuff. Think of like Darth Sidious, y'all. But instead Darth Sidious is like Darth Sidious is playing more of an evil role this time. Like, they manipulate in all sides. And the problem is it's really difficult, especially for my Star Wars fans. Shout out to my Star Wars fans in the what do you call this, comments, by the way. But looking back at the topic again, it gets really difficult, because trying to get a clear cut stance when there's already when things are constantly changing, especially when the attacker makes these this like that, or make this like this, make some things feel true, kind of like distorting the perception reality, distort our perception of the situation for all sides. And what makes this difficult here is I can't take a clear cut stance on neutrality. All right, let me look at my notes again, because number one, by the court of public opinion. The court of public opinion, if I took an unclear stance, if I took a neutral stance for that matter, society would hail me as a terrible boyfriend, because for not automatically siding with my GF and believing everything that she says. But the really big problem here, chat, is that this also conflicts with my own values. Obviously, I'm not gonna follow what society says. The code of public opinion is definitely based off of a lot of strong emotional reactions, especially in the case of abuse. When it comes to strong emotional reactions, that definitely applies here a lot. But looking at my own view, I definitely have to think critically before taking a stance. We have to consider every side, consider what the abuser is doing, consider how my girlfriend is feeling. We have to consider all sides before taking a stance. The problem is this raises the question. This also raises a question in the future friendship or relationship, or any case for that matter, or that be someone I don't even, or that be some random person that I don't know. The really big question that this raises is, should I continue defending them blindly, believe what everything that they're saying is true? Or number two, risk the fact that I am defending a manipulator. This is a perfect chance of neutrality, of someone misinterpreting my point of neutrality as defending the other side, defending a PDF or something like that. Because that is definitely one of the situations in something like this where it's a very ambiguous case. I could definitely get labeled as a pedophile. I can definitely get labeled as a pedophile defender for that matter. The problem is that holds a lot of legal weight. Calling someone like that based off of your own emotions, based off of the internet, and based off of limited perception is really dangerous, because that can destroy reputations real damn quickly. And looking at it again, it gets to a really morally ambiguous gray area here, because abuse, what it's defined as, can get really difficult at times, because the perception of it and the way the abusers are doing it, it gets blinding at times. All right, let me go ahead and look at here. Of course, my girlfriend would probably well, actually, let me say, as I said, yes, I'd probably get hailed as a terrible boyfriend for not immediately defending my GF. The big problem with this, yo, is that I need to consider all sides before continuously defending. All right. What if the claims are false or something like that? What if the claims are misjudged? All right, because where it gets really ambiguous here is that, what if the claims that my girlfriend is saying are misunderstood? What if it's a misjudgment? All right, especially what if it's like tough love or something like that. Now it gets really, really difficult here because what makes abuse is that it's very ambiguous. There's a ton of gray areas when it comes to it. The problem is these abusers are constantly manipulating, they're constantly manipulating the variables when it comes to it. All right, especially when it comes to society's extreme reactions when it comes to a lot of emotionally charged situations, whether that be the abuser's unchecked behavior or whether that be society's unchecked emotional reactions to a lot of things. Because of this polarized debate, people think that they're higher. Any one side thinks that they're better or that they have the key to the solution to the problem. And the big problem with this is that if all sides keep on going all around and not trying to face out with the real issue, then we're not going to find solutions. If there are constant echo chambers, if there are constant viewpoints where viewpoints are constantly being reinforced without any nuance, then it gets really dangerous because we won't be able to solve issues. We won't be able to solve issues as a humanity moving forward, because how we solve small issues can also translate on how we solve big issues. All right, looking at it again, that like oversimplifies a lot of things, but then again, I have a time constraint, unfortunately, so let's continue. But surprisingly, yes, this dilemma shows divide between number one, standing for my own values of neutrality. We gotta consider all sides of the story, no matter how badly painted we get by society or by my own people. But then again, we also have to consider I don't want to inadvertently take an extreme where I end up defending the accuser, or and then let's say the claims are misjudged. Their claims were or say the claims were false. And that's where it gets really difficult because I could get backlash if I take an extreme and let's say the claims were kind of misfolded. People on what someone like Inside Edition, let's say they end up covering this high profile case, I could probably get like people are in the problem. People in the comments are probably gonna call me out real damn bad for taking a stance too early. That's a problem. That's a really big problem, chat. Because if I take two extremes too early, if I end up defending my own girlfriend without too blindly, but then again, if I end up defending the accused too much, then that could end to really terrible outcomes. There are a lot of potential several negative outcomes that could come from it. But the problem is with telling people to get evidence of abuse is that abuse is hard to record. Abusers, as I said, chat, can distort the perceptions of reality really, really good. Now, when you even try to record it, it gets really, really difficult. Especially with my own girlfriend. Like, let's say I end up telling my girlfriend to record this abuse. It gets really, really risky to a point because they could end up finding out could be a whole ton of negative outcomes that can come from that. And that's a really big problem that I have. Is that because you guys should not criticize my viewpoints. I'm not going to criticize your own viewpoints. We need to criticize the abusers themselves because they were the ones that are causing this issue in the first place. All right. The problem is with extreme polarization from society, we won't be able to find solutions. All right. Especially extreme reactions that come from society, they won't lead to solutions. Extreme and polarized echo chambers will not lead to solutions. None of it leads to solutions at all. I'm looking at it, it really raises that interesting dilemma of should I continuously continue oh my god, should I continuously blindly defend my girlfriend when there's no evidence, or should I risk, on the other hand, not believing it, taking a neutral stance and getting backlash for it later? Not take a neutral stance, but inadvertently end up defending this side or that side. Let's say it ages really terribly on me. Let's say that like this stance or that stance, if it ends up aging very badly, I can get really let's say I can get so much backlash for that. It could get really, really dangerous real fast. So as when it comes to it, because abusers and cases of abuse, the variables are constantly changing. Ultimately speaking, put this into a mathematical analogy. Ultimately speaking, y'all, there's I'm gonna say right now, no solution. Right? Because variables and the way of perceptions keep on changing over time. It's really difficult. All right. I'm just gonna say that. Ultimately, the most riskiest thing I could do thinking outside of the box is sneak with my girlfriend to where the abuse is happening, sneak in and try to get the evidence myself. But thinking that's also risky too, because abusers have formed a lot of they're really a lot of them are really smart at hiding their own ideals. I think it's really, really dangerous to that point right there. But then again, even if I take a neutral stance, if I take a neutral stance on this side, or no, if I take a stance that says yes or no, no, I will not defend my girlfriend. I will see what all sides are saying. Or if I say yes, I'll continue defending my girlfriend. The really big problem with this, if I take a binary answer of yes or no, adding binary answers and simplistic solutions to already very complex issues will not lead to solutions, because if you take this side or that side, you fail to kind of like acknowledge the complexities, acknowledge like what's happening in this side or that side, or rather kind of the neutral stance right now. It gets really difficult because each case of abuse differs person by person. Obviously, once there's evidence that releases, obviously I'm going to take a side, but it does get really difficult with a neutral stance, and even taking any side for that matter, or even people with strong emotional reactions who have been victims themselves, or like even the ones that have seen rehabilitation in people who have done abuse. It gets really difficult because how am I supposed to discern between these types of people? How am I supposed to how am I supposed to navigate through the extreme polarization that the internet often has? And it gets really, and to be fair, I'm caught between the extremes because I don't want to. I still absolutely care a lot for my girlfriend. I would do so many things for her right now. Well, right now I don't really have one, but then again, it also raises the other question. I have to stand to my own ideals of neutrality. We have to understand both sides. We have to take this neutral stance. We have to see what is this side saying, what is that side saying. But then again, we also could get mislabeled as this as a defender of this person or that person, or I could get mislabeled as someone who is insensitive to the issues of abuse cases today. But that's where the really big problem with taking a stance at all is because if you take a neutral stance, you might not look at both sides of the story properly because each case is different. It's going to be really difficult. If I take yes, I'm going to continue defending my girlfriend, or I'm going to take the very risky route of trying to get record evidence, that could put me into a lot of negative outcomes too. But then again, if I say no, I could risk inadvertently defending the person who's doing this or that, and let's say I could probably get labeled as a, what do you call this, a PDF file defender, or an abuser defender. That's a really big problem when it comes to society. It gets really polarizing. There's polarized. Sometimes critical thinking is misunderstood, and people often use straw man attacks or ad hominem attacks to critique on the point and make it easier to attack. And that's how lies spread out really, really fast because it's based off of a misunderstanding, and that's a really big problem. Number one, society's extreme reactions will not lead to any solutions. All right, the courts of public opinion saying like they must be doing this or that, they must be sentenced to this how many years in jail. Any extreme reactions will not lead to solutions. Number one. Number two, we have to recognize the reality of abusers. Number one, abusers exist no sorry number two, abusers exist too. They exist out there. They have a lot of suppressive tactics that they can use to prevent evidence from getting released, and ultimately leave people kind of on a, what do you call this, lack of a stance for that matter. And number three, what makes this case really terrible is that what makes cases very also is that abusers are different. How There are several different types of abusers. There are ones that are pure evil abusers, evil like abusers who were born that they know they wanted to do this. And number one, there are also abusers who have been abused themselves. They too have been abused before. They're just simply repeating that same behavior. And that's a really big problem with this, is that this is broken evil. Society also fails to recognize that too. That there are also bad people too. They have bad history, but then again, it's not an excuse to justify their terrible actions. This again also touches onto the issue of punitive punishment plus forgiveness. Again, once this person is convicted of this or that, it also touches on that issue. But we're gonna slide that away for now. We're gonna look for this one. Gonna look at this issue right now. That's a really big problem. Is if I take two extremes, if I take this extreme, obviously I'm gonna be hailed as a terrible person by society. I'm gonna be hailed as a bad boyfriend I might be broken up with. But then again, number two, I might get hailed as a good boyfriend, but then again misunderstood. misjudged or immature, taking a stance way too early and defending someone way too early. And that's a really big problem with this, is that it's really, really difficult to find a stance on something like this, even a neutral stance for that matter. It's really difficult. That's why I wish I could just hug my girlfriend, maybe hug her as many times as possible, and protect her all the time. But ultimately, that's really unrealistic. Ultimately, there's gonna be times that I'll eventually not be with my girlfriend. Obviously, it's like very obvious, but that's really it raises that really interesting question. All right, what am I more inclined to defending my girlfriend blindly, chat? If she does show like what do you call this, and like text evidence or anything like that, actually wait, I think text evidence is definitely one of the best things to put down here, because it could show whether that be misunderstood or understood properly. That could hint to abuse. So when it comes to it, I'm definitely more inclined to siding with my girl. And please, yes, and definitely building that trust foundation is also important. I think that's also important for a lot of you guys too. Building that relationship of based off of the fundamental perspective of trust. All right. So number one, yes, I'm definitely gonna trust that the my future girlfriend claims. Let's say she does actually get abused. I'm gonna trust that it is true. All right. But then again, it also raises that interesting dilemma. It's the clash between having to defend someone, but then again, having to understand two sides to a story. Like, why are they doing this? What are they doing to blunt their perception of reality? And number two, what if we take this side or that side too much, and then we end up being explained away as a terrible person to society? And heck, there might end up being like an expose video about me saying like, "Whoa, Brian3722 is a master defender of PDF files, and here's why with all this and that." That's the really dangerous part of mudslinging, is that there's a lot of polarization on the internet. That's why any mistaken points can result in a lot of drama. That's why I already stated in my not very first video, so I stated a few videos ago. The point of neutrality is to understand both sides to a story. It's to think critically. All right, but then again, looking at it looking at both sides of the issue now, yo, will I be more inclined to defend my girlfriend? Absolutely, bro. I'll probably give her as many hugs as possible. But then again, we're also going to look at we're also going to look at all sides of the story, because it gets really interesting here, because there's a lot of people out there that do that could put false claims, but then again, there's genuine people out there that are no, there are genuine people out there that are suffering through a lot right now. All right, it gets really difficult because ultimately, y'all, whether you guys are part of an entrenched society, not society, entrenched viewpoints, neutral viewpoints, or no viewpoints at all, ultimately we're just human. We really want what's better for our society, and I really understand where you guys are coming from. I understand where I'm coming from too, because I'm human. My girlfriend's human. She's probably going through. She could probably, in this case, she could probably be going through a lot right now. So, uh, it's really it does get kind of a complex emotional process right here. All right, number one, yes, I'll be more inclined to defend my girlfriend, thankfully speaking. But then again, it also raises that question: should I continue defending blindly if there's no evidence, or should I look at both sides and hold my judgment before the actual thing happens? But thankfully, chat, we have this one thing. We got the courts of law. We have this thing called innocent until proven guilty. Until we add that, number one, the justice system in itself is also flawed too. That's the really big problem. There have been miscarriages of justice before. There have been court cases where someone could say it has been a miscarriage of justice, and that does get really hold on a minute. It does really get does get to a point sometimes, sometimes not even sometimes when a court case can't come to a proper conclusion, it's gonna take even years. It could even take years for the abuser to get this sentence or that sentence. That's why I understand about vigilante justice too. I understand why people act out the way they want to, even if it's undermining the code of law. I understand why. It's because number one, we live in the U.S. The U.S. Someone could say that the justice system is terrible. I absolutely would understand. But then again, it's just this issue is like so complex. All right, I need you. Whether you guys are from an entrenched viewpoint or whether you guys from a neutral viewpoint, when it comes to my own final stance on this, yo, my my stance on this is no solution. The problem is cases. Each case will vary, and how the future will go out is going to be unpredictable. We do not know. I don't know if maybe the future will go out like I said, or maybe not. But the problem is it gets really difficult sometimes, especially when talking about this issue. Is that we gotta make sure to consider all standpoints, because there have been people that are genuinely being abused by others. There are people that I really want to help. But then again, there's people who make out false accusations against people. There are teens out there who are still emotionally charged, or still are going through something right now. Maybe the reason that's why they put out those false claims. And it gets really difficult at times, when it comes to it. But I'm definitely gonna trust that my future girlfriend will not make any false claims. And that's a really the big point here is the abusers. We all have ultimately we want something that's better. We have to point all of the responsibility toward the abuser, because they're what's going to indirectly cause this debate. Is because of them, the abusers. All right, they're the ones. They're the reasons that this debate in my mind also exists too. It gets really difficult looking at it, because there are people just going through a lot right now. See what I'm saying, y'all? Let me go ahead to and oh my god, wait, I do actually have to say this. Wait. Let me go back here. And yes, for my future girlfriend, I know you guys are probably not watching this, but for my any future girlfriend, if I do ever end up getting one, I know this is might put like a ton of emotional weight, and even friends too. But I'm gonna might put a lot of emotional weight or something like that. I do really apologize if it does. Um, and I don't mean to put it on you guys, since such an answer to make out from a complex issue is really difficult. All right, I'm just gonna trust that my future girlfriend doesn't. I'm going to know that a lot of teens are still impulsive today, but I'm gonna trust that they won't make false allegations. I'll believe them. I'll definitely more inclined to believing them, because ultimately it's about protecting humans. I wish I could protect my girlfriend all the time, keep her protected under my arms. Maybe keep her with me all the time, but that's unrealistic, intrinsically unsustainable. It will not work all the time. And if the situation does ever arise, I hope I can trust you guys not to make false accusations either. So number one, I don't have to cover it on YouTube, and number two, uh, it's just about what do you call this, integrity. It's also about standing up for what a complex world we live in, for that matter. All right. If I don't mean to of course I don't mean to protrude into any relationship, for that matter, especially when it comes to other people who might have been abused themselves. I don't mean to put any of this emotional weight on you guys. I'm just exploring the complex world of this, and especially for my future girlfriend too, if I do ever end up getting one. I do not mean to put any unfair or relationship expectations to put on you guys. I don't really mean to do that. I don't um I don't mean to be this person or that person. I'm just trying to understand it when it comes to this world, when it comes to understanding both sides. And when it comes to it, y'all, please don't feel frightened by my answer. Be frightened I'm looking in the future or what could happen. Please don't. Ultimately, the future is unpredictable, and such a case ever happening will really depend on each person's circumstances. But I don't mean to put any emotional pressure on any of y'all future friends or something like that, or any future partners. I don't mean to put any of that. I'm just trying to explore the deep complexity that's beyond the surface level when it comes to cases of abuse. And yes, child, I'm really sorry if I offended any of you guys, whoever's suffering through a lot right now. Maybe you guys are going through something right now. I don't mean to offend you or anything like that, because I know my points can get misconstructed at times. So I don't mean to protrude or anything like that. All right. But when it comes to the situation, ultimately, the reason I put no solution is we don't know. We don't know how the future is gonna go. I don't know how the case is gonna go out. But ultimately, I'm trying to be thoughtful about both sides. It gets really difficult though. All right, for that, and because it's really difficult for that reason, for the sake of my own future partners and friends, I'm going to end this video now, since it is very complex. Thank you guys for watching. I definitely need your thoughts, y'all, of whether you guys are entrenched in this viewpoint or that viewpoint, or taking no sense at all, or the ones who don't care either. I need your views too. So I definitely need to take in a lot of things. And thank you guys for watching.